Yeah, so welcome to the Superdelic Freefall podcast.
What's up, guys?
I guess we need to apologize for our rudeness in the last week's episode. We did not introduce ourselves.
Tisk, tisk.
We were getting the first episode going. I think we were just too excited to get things rolling.
Sure.
We just
Forgot our manners.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, with any ado, I'm Andy.
I'm Sean.
And we're here to entertain and get into some cool conversations.
Yes.
If you guys are interested in following us in other places, we are available on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public. We're working on iTunes right now. It should be another week and a half or so. They take a long time to get the podcast going up on their end. So we are just in a waiting period right now. And hopefully we'll be up there soon. There's a couple other ones I am not remembering right now, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll probably leave everything down in the description.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube right now. We do not have a Facebook. Not sure that we will have one. We might. We'll probably do it at some point.
Yeah, we'll see. Taking our time.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like there was something else. Oh, yeah. So, we are going to be cutting this podcast and all of our podcasts up into clips. You guys will be getting the full podcasts on any normal podcast platform like Spotify, but if you guys are interested in listening to smaller bits at a time, 10-minute clips roughly or so, you can check those out on YouTube. We'll be cutting up each of our podcasts into smaller segments so people can get little bite-sized pieces if they want, or you can listen to the full podcast as well. But yeah, this episode is going to be all about
consciousness. It's always been a subject that has always been on my mind. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But I always find myself falling back into these types of conversations all the time with my best friend Andy here and some other people. It's just an interesting subject to me, so I think it'll be a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I always find it to be an extremely, I guess, how would you say this, enigmatic kind of thing to talk about, because there are so many different ways that people look at it, and how many people have explained it in different ways, and how they view how it could potentially be. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's like and that's what makes this subject so fun. It's like you can let your imagination go wild because no one actually really knows what consciousness is. There's not a central authority that says this is what it is, and like they don't teach it. You know, there's some people who think that it comes from, you know, a religious source. There's people who think that it just comes from the brain. I believe
the definition, I think I Googled it really quickly before we started, but it was like a person that is aware of its surroundings, and that was the basic definition.
And that's really vague and not really specific at all. So it's just like, I don't know. You can't. That can't be it for consciousness because there's so many other things. Like you have to think about, like, what about brain dead people who, you know, what is life, right? And that's to me that's related directly to the question of what is consciousness. So consider you're in a coma and you're sitting down in a hospital bed, or you're laying down, I suppose you're in a coma, and you're being kept alive with all these machines. Like, are you conscious of that experience?
I mean, I feel like a lot of doctors would probably say no at that point, but I don't think on a philosophical basis you could say that is the case.
Right.
Because from my understanding is people who go unconscious or in a coma, I guess they wouldn't be unconscious if I'm thinking they're conscious.
Right.
But, if they go into a coma, they still enter dreamlike states.
Okay.
And they are effectively, like, they're dreaming. They are, you know, conscious in a sense. They are still having experience.
Exactly.
I got a buzzword around philosophers nowadays is this word qualia.
Yes.
That they throw out there. And that is, I mean, if I had to put a definition on it, I don't have the textbook in front of me or anything like that.
Right.
But qualia is essentially the experience of something.
Right.
And
Sort of.
how you're experiencing, so like how like red
Yes.
this table is, or how I'm hearing a certain sound. If somebody has like a little bit of a deafness where they can't hear beyond certain decibels, their qualia of hearing is going to be different from my qualia.
Right.
So
Which adds another hard dimension to define, what those experiences are and where they come from.
I mean, everyone's good. It's kind of like the. I think we got this in grade school, like the perspective problem, where they put you in a movie theater, and you're sitting here, your friend's sitting here, and you have somebody who's sitting in front of you, right in the middle, and so your friend is seeing 3/4 of this part of the screen, but they can't see the last fourth, and then you're seeing the other fourth. And if there's any storytelling elements happening in the screens,
You can't pick up on
you're
them.
not picking it up. It's not part of your experience. So your perception or qualia of the movie would be completely different than the person who you're sitting next to.
Right, and I think that's something that everyone can relate to. Like that's what makes communicating to each other so difficult, is that the qualia of experience that we all experience is going to be slightly varied because we are all individuals, allegedly. Like
I know, I mean that. When you say it like that, the idea of panpsychism has come up a lot. I mean, I've been listening to different podcasts and reading different articles and stuff on consciousness for the last week, and the idea of panpsychism, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Is really one that I feel like we've talked about this before, and conversations long ago. But not necessarily panpsychism, but pantheism.
Yeah, that's the one I remember.
I mean, I was, I don't think I've ever been really a religious person, but I've always like dabbled and tried kind of seeing the perspectives of different things, and I felt like at the time when we were talking about this, I want to say it was probably around like 2014, 15 kind of era. I felt like I was a bit more of a pantheist because.
So what's pantheism again?
Pantheism is the belief that all that is in the universe is equal to God, essentially. Okay. That's been my understanding of it.
Okay.
I feel like there are a few other ways of looking at it where you can believe that essentially all gods that exist, there's like a different view of it where like you basically accept all gods. Like you believe in the Christian God, you believe in Allah.
Sort of like what they do. I think, what religion is that? I think, is it Sikhism? I don't know. There's like I think there's some religion in the East that they essentially say that all gods are valid or something. I don't forget what it is. Again, I'm not religious. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess it would be kind of like that.
Okay.
But yeah, the panpsychism kind of goes into the area. I mean, you might know a little bit more about this than me. I feel like you've kind of studied up on consciousness more recently than I have over the last year, more frequently. But I guess my idea of what panpsychism is that consciousness is, roughly like one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental part of the universe. And from everything else that arises. Yeah. We have the current mechanistic model of science right now that most scientists when they're standing in front of a podium are going to say the brain the mechanical systems and the electrical systems within the brain are that which create consciousness, and it is potentially a consciousness itself is just an illusion of all of these processes going on within your head.
Like it's generative.
Yeah. But then you have philosophers that would argue against that, saying, well, even the conceptualization of an illusion proves that consciousness exists, because you'd have to have some sort of a consciousness. Yeah,
you'd have to have that prerequisite of
of like viewing something and then being able to make a decision as to whether or not it was an illusion.
Exactly, but the thing is, but you can't prove that, so it's so hard. But yeah, I have been doing a lot of reading up and studying of the consciousness just because it's interesting to me. What I've come to start, like, I guess I wouldn't say believing or saying like this is the way things are, but the way that my mind has taken these ideas is that I'm subscribing to the panpsychism type of theory, where consciousness is fundamental, and to me, probably the most, what's the word?
Prevalent or prevalent?
Prevalent and
Believable.
What is the resilient? There we go.
Okay.
The most resilient thing in the universe. I think the way that, when you go back and you think about like the Big Bang Theory and like how the universe was created, and that combined with all of our like religious views and like some other of those fringe theories, like morphic resonance and everything that explains like the fields around things that give things shape and the ability for those fields to carry something like an imprint of a memory or whatever out in the environment. Like I feel like that combined with everything else, it's very plausible to me that what actually was the catalyst for what we're perceiving as the Big Bang is consciousness, and therefore everything that exists is a form of consciousness trying to express itself essentially. Yeah. So like this the experience that consciousness is having as Sean is contributing to the complete experience of the universe, and improving the knowledge and ability of the consciousness to continue being the universe, I suppose. So the way that I experience this particular experience, whenever this vessel or whatever deteriorates or dies, like I don't think that like the sense of I will go away, but like my consciousness will just rejoin the bigger consciousness. I feel like that's kind of like where things are at.
It's where the end of the DM T-strip is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, man.
I don't know, but like it's wild to think about. Like if I don't know what you're saying.
Oh no, I mean I was just gonna add on to it. The panpsychism. I mean, I guess I want to expand on that a little bit more because I mean they're saying the fundamental root of everything would essentially be consciousness, but there's also like an attribution to consciousness to everything. I was listening to Rupert Sheldrake talk about it, and he is of the mind that the people who are pushing this panpsychism aren't pushing it far enough. Like they as they're putting it out there, they're essentially labeling atoms and particles to some level have a level of consciousness within themselves. They're smaller what do you call it smaller mechanisms that to a level have consciousness, but he would also like push it even further and say the sun also has consciousness,
right?
And potentially like rocks have consciousness, trees also would have consciousness, but the qualia of all of those things is going to be at varying in different degrees. And I don't know, man, it's a really interesting theory, and one that I kind of think needs to be explored a lot more than it is, especially in the scientific community. I mean, I remember hearing, I don't want to say, I can't remember if it was like during Galileo's time or if it was during Rene Descartes' time, but there's just a point where there was this separation between like the churches and scientists where they basically like split it up, where science got everything that was of the physical realm and the churches got everything that was in the mind and mystical and spiritual and everything else. And that's when
So it was like for each group, it was taboo to dabble in the other. Like as a religious figure, you don't want to go out and say that science is the reason something is, because that goes against God. Or like if you're a scientist, you don't want to try to support your claims by saying because of God.
Yeah, I mean, certainly during that point in time. I mean, there was definitely a separation of it. I want to say it was during the 16th century.
Okay, I want to say is that what they call the Enlightening, or am I thinking of something different?
I think you might be thinking of something different, but
okay, got it.
Yeah, history kind of like melts together after a while. But yeah, and I mean, there's this huge separation, and then that's kind of when like mechanistic science got going, and it's taken us a long way,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there is, there have been scientists and philosophers that have said, taking the mind and the spirit out of science has actually helped us move further along, like not having to worry about consciousness and not having to, taking that out of the equation and just being able to focus on the empirical world. It's taken us a long way.
Absolutely.
Not having to factor those things into the equation.
But I think now's the time to add those back in.
Yeah, because we've only gotten so far with that kind of science and understanding consciousness. I mean, even today, like nobody knows what it is or how to explain it. Right. I mean, the best case scenarios that we have is that it's an illusion.
Right. And I don't think a lot of us want to accept that as an answer. It's like, if it's an illusion, it's an illusion. That's great. But like, there are other avenues that we can go down and explore and try to figure out. But I mean, but that's what science is supposed to do. Like, you can take the spirit out of science, like you were saying earlier and everything. But there's science out of spirit. Exactly. There's an undeniable quality of mystery to our existence, and we use spirit to kind of explain that narratively to make us feel better. But eventually, we figure out what that thing is. Yeah, I mean, at one point, like they used to think people sneezing was an omen for something bad to happen, and they didn't understand it was. Yeah,
wasn't like they were like saying like a devil was trying to get in, or a demon was escaping.
Exactly, and it's just like, and that's not it.
Something like that.
And like now we just accept sneezing. Like no one thinks about sneezing. They just do it, and you move on. It's not going to kill you. It's know.
I mean, I think that it's something to be considered. The fact that we do live in a materialistic world where our base concrete scientific beliefs demand like a materialistic explanation for everything.
Yeah.
But you also find that most people find themselves gravitating towards a religious like some sort of a religion or some sort of spirituality of one kind or another.
Right.
People are, for the most part, attracted to having that side of their life. What's the word I'm looking for? They want to explore it, and they want to, feel a little bit spiritual or not. You have like, it's what really popular these days. You have like all these girls like collecting crystals and doing like tarot. My sister's huge into like tarot cards and collecting crystals and
right. And like,
I don't understand it.
But there are people out there who believe there's something to it, and like for some people, there could be, and well, that's the other thing too. Is like there's another theory. I think I don't remember what it's called, but where the function of the brain is actually it's not generative, very similar to the whole panpsychism thing, but consciousness is actually more of almost like a wave that exists all around us, and we're just receivers of it.
Yeah, I believe I've seen like Rupert Sheldrake has had some sort of a diagram for this where effectively like consciousness and memory kind of exists outside of the human mind and body and everything, and the brain effect and spine, I guess, would effectively be like a receiver for these things. I think that's kind of an interesting concept, I
mean, and I think that would kind of explain the paranormal type of things that we sometimes experience in this life, like where people claim that they can see the future, or the scryers who can see across, the world and for some crazy reason can accurately describe someplace else that they've never been. I think that's one way that we are experiencing consciousness. It's totally possible. Like they could be tapping into some kind of stream that they can actually control, like a water pipe, the amount of water and force of water that can come out. And the more consciousness maybe that they have, the more ability they have to, see back into the past, or look into the future, or know what's going to happen next, or just understands things that you would never, like no human would ever understand. I think it's totally possible. Like that could explain ghosts. Like that could be, they're just vibrations, I guess, of the past, and like you could just see them. Like maybe your consciousness is taking part of your perception, and it's stretching it across time and space, and that's what we're perceiving as ghosts. It's like we're not actually seeing someone who's dead and walking around, but we're seeing some strange, like almost like when you cross your eyes and you see the images cross over, like we're seeing two times at once, and we have no way of explaining that because it's not a normal way.
There's like some kind of like timeline that's like accidentally, it's like it's on its own flow, and that just kind of dips down into ours for like a hot second, and you're getting this, this kind of like
this weird kind
vision of the past sort of thing.
And like maybe that's the reason why all these UFO videos are all blurry all the time. Yeah, because like maybe they don't actually exist here, but they exist in another time and space, and we're just, something's happening with the way that existence is aligned with all the other universes where they're overlapping, and we're just seeing after images of things that don't exist in our realm.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't really know how to get into all. I'm not like savvy with ghosts and how the workings of them work. I mean, I do know my sister at one point like had a ghost premonition, and I had one too. I may have been dreaming. Yeah. Like God. But my sister swears that she saw some ghost in her hallway when she was a kid. And like to this day, she is just like, it happened.
Yeah. And maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But like that's the thing is there's countless paranormal activity that happens every day on this planet that we can't explain with materialistic science, yet people can perceive these things. And by understanding consciousness better, maybe we can solve those problems. And like maybe we'll never get to the point of solving consciousness because maybe simulation theory is real.
Okay, dude. So I mean that's a whole. I mean, we should definitely go down that in this podcast.
Because like, how can we question consciousness if we're in a simulation right now? Like that's given that free will's gone. So like this conversation is actually pointless.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily gone. I mean, I think free will can exist within a simulation, but I mean, free will is it is constrained within the confines of any given environment and I guess natural abilities that anyone has. I mean, do you consider yourself to have free will if you can't, use telekinesis to, turn the camera on and off, or to like pour myself a glass of whiskey here? Right. Like is that saying that you don't have free will because you're unable to do that?
Right.
But going down simulation theory, man, I mean, I was listening to a pretty interesting conversation a while back, and they were talking about simulation theory and how, it could effectively be, simulations within simulations within simulations. Okay, so they're essentially like we could be like number 57 in the line of like universes that have been created that have also come to the conclusion of building a simulation. Right. So, I mean, but what you could draw from that is like every prior universe above like our level has like exponentially, like the universe would have to be exponentially bigger all the way up to like zero. Right. And they have just like the ultimate freedom because they can't. I think the gist that they were getting to was that they can't build their own universe. Inside of the confines of like whatever technology, because you have limits to your own universe. Absolutely. So you can't build anything that's bigger or better than
what you actually have.
Yeah, than what you actually have. So like, you have like zero, and they create a simulated universe. And
because what would it like to have limits? Because in their universe they have no limits.
Yeah, and they want to experience. Like maybe life would be better if we didn't have what we wanted instantaneously. Right. So they decided, we're going to create this universe, and it's going to have limitations, and it's going to, provide meaning to the things that we do, because if you have everything, like, why do you need to do anything? Right. It's just like you have everything. I mean, this is why a lot of rich people go fucking nuts. Yeah. It's because they have the ability to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And without having struggle and like the need and desire to move towards a goal
and like overcome something.
People go nuts. Yeah. I mean,
100%. Look at our country right
now. I know, you can see with COVID, like people have lost their jobs, they've lost their purpose, they've lost everything that has, given them, their identity and their self and their purpose in life. It takes away everything that they do. Their lives have been shattered. And now you have a bunch of crazy people running around the street, burning down buildings, and going nuts. Exactly. And, I guess what's the saying for that? Idle hands are the devil's playground. Yeah. And this, I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
For sure. I mean, and that's another thing, is that idea of the collective consciousness and like the mob mentality. Like,
yeah, what's that saying? That was in like Men in Black, Tommy Lee Jones. Like
shit.
Like one person is like one person is logical, but like a group of people are crazy or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I totally remember. I can't remember the line, but yeah, precisely. So like that conundrum, that kind of weird thing, phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, like where you're a perfectly upstanding citizen, but then you see this big group of people doing something, and all of a sudden something switches in your mind, and you just join up and you start destroying. You have no reason to join up. It's just
something in the air.
Something in the air.
Yeah, I mean, like you see this, you see this when you go to like festivals and music concerts and stuff. Like it's a place where people are going and they can just let go and be free.
Absolutely.
And once like a pattern starts over here, people start joining in. Sorry, when I say pattern, maybe it's like a mosh pit or a shit ton people are smoking weed over in this corner. You start seeing these convergences of behavior that.
And then you see everyone, and then like that's why people like going to those events, because you go there, you get that ego death experience when you're on all the psychedelics, and you are around a group of people, and then you join this collective consciousness, and you have this experience where yes, please, you have this experience where it's almost like you're awakening that you're seeing this truth that you are one being. But like it's contradictive because you know that you are yourself, but it's a hard thing to accept. Like when you experience that ego death, it's like being off that trip and like getting away from that feeling, because it's not a feeling that you can hold on to very long. It kind of makes you really think deeper about the nature of your consciousness and who you are as a person and what makes you. Versus someone else, and that's where like this whole idea of free love, I mean, I think came from like when they were doing all the drugs back in the 60s. As far as I'm a young person, a human being. I was born in 1980s, so like
when were you born?
87.
87. I was 89.
So and yummy.
It's really good.
It is good. But just from what I know about the 1960s and like the Beatles and everything, like they really promoted this idea that everything should be doused with love, and that is like what makes a peaceful existence. And that feeling of love is similar to that feeling of being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I feel like we all grow up with that feeling of wanting to change the world or wanting to do something bigger than you are. But then we're always so attached to our individual identities. But I don't know, there's just something to that whole collective.
A note on that, man. I was listening to the podcast that you were, you suggested to me, Waking Cosmos, I think.
Yeah.
It's called. Really awesome podcast if you guys want to check that one out. Definitely give them a listen, especially if you want to listen to more about consciousness, because that guy, woo!
He's so intelligent. Yeah.
I cannot remember his name right now, but the podcast is called Waking Cosmos.
Yeah, we'll include all that stuff in the description.
If we could ever get him to come on the show and talk to us about it, and we should.
That'd be cool. I would love to be educated.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know that he really smart. He opened up a lot of things about consciousness when I was listening to him. Anyway, you were saying.
Sorry, he had a guest on. They were going over psychedelics and how what that effect is on the consciousness, and they were talking about, you have people who go on these trips, like they're either doing, like DMT or mushrooms, and there's a common experience that everyone has where they feel this oneness with the universe. And I mean, I know you and I have definitely had that.
Yes, we have
had that feeling before, doing the crazy things we have done. And his idea of this, and he was one to kind of think that this oneness and I guess what people might consider to be this godlike experience, or this oneness where they're feeling at one with the universe. It wasn't necessarily like their ego dissolving and them feeling the oneness with all of the universe, but them feeling the oneness within themselves.
Okay.
I kind of like the idea more that I'm feeling at oneness with the entire universe. I mean, if you want to go with the idea of panpsychism and that consciousness is the fundamental, proponent of the entire universe, like it is like one of the pieces of the fundamentalness, and your ego dissolves and you get this feeling of oneness. You are kind of feeling this this indiscernible. There's no discretion between what you are and what this tree is.
Yes.
Or what the table is. Like, you are all part of this one,
right.
Forever infinite piece of universe.
For sure.
It's like, I mean...
Yeah, that reminds me, I actually I listened to Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception, and he describes, he was doing mescaline, it's derived from I think it's the peyote cactus, or some kind of cactus. So like
the only mescaline reference that I know of is, I didn't know we should get into it. No. Well, yeah, no, actually Fear and Loathing too. But also the Matrix.
Oh, I don't remember the mentioning of mescaline.
When the two weird guys that want the disc from Neo come to the door, and the chick's got the white rabbit on her shoulder.
Oh, yes.
Mescaline.
That's
the only way to fly.
That's right. It's like one of the first fucking lines of the movie. Okay. I have to
never tried
go
it.
Watch that movie again.
But yeah.
Fuck. What was I saying?
You were going on mescaline for a second.
Oh, mescaline. So, Doors of Perception. The whole idea of the feeling with oneness, as far as being the same as this tree and this table or whatever, he describes when he was on mescaline, because he had someone there monitoring him and he wanted to record the experience. He described at one point that when he was observing a chair in front of him, he was no longer observing that chair and he was no longer who he was. He somehow was that chair and was experiencing being the chair. And it's that's the weirdest, when you think about it, that's the weirdest thing that you could...
I don't know, maybe the guy was right. I mean, if he is experiencing himself being the chair, maybe you are just experiencing yourself at, deeper levels. And maybe yourself is just consciousness and all
that's
together.
True. And, the other explanation is maybe that feeling of oneness, maybe it's not that we're all part of one consciousness. Perhaps what psychedelics does is it increases our capacity to be empathetic. So perhaps that's just pushing tons of chemicals into our body that are increasing this effect of empathy, and it gives us the illusion that we're this chair, but instead we just feel what it feels like to exist as a chair because we're so empathetic.
And I feel that's like a chair right now.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be fucking weird? But
not that's my chair though.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but if it's just we have these distinctions, I am me, my shirt is something different than what I am, my chair is different, this table's different, but...
but that's what our brain does, is it notices differences.
Yeah, it has discrepancies,
Yes.
it puts these walls up of, what am I, and the eye is weird, man, because it's if you chop off your arm and you throw it to the side, that arm is no longer part of you. No. But
it is still...
Is it an eye?
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to because I've recently have gotten into Buddhism, not super spiritual and practicing religious parts of Buddhism, but just the very basic of understanding what the noble truths are and the benefits of meditation and stuff.
Yeah.
So that whole idea of cutting off your arm and saying, is that an eye? Is that still me? I argue... and this is another reason why I believe that consciousness is super fundamental, is when you keep on... One of the noble truths is that things are impermanent.
I'm sorry, could you explain noble truths?
So noble truths. So they're the four pillars, basically, of Buddhism, the basic fundamentals of understanding our existence.
Okay.
So one noble truth is... everything is impermanent, which means everything, there's an end to things. Things don't last forever. Another noble truth is everything is interconnected. Basically, somehow I'm connected to this table. I'm connected to this table in a way that I'm sitting at it. This table was connected to a tree at some point, and you can kind of trace back the lineage of as far as where these things are, and eventually you'll come to a common point that everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
Another noble truth, which comes more to like human experience, is that there is suffering in life. I forget what the last noble truth is. I would have to look it up.
Sorry, how many are there in total?
There should be 4. I think there are 4.
So is this like kind of? I mean, if you had to like give it a comparison, would this be like the 10 Commandments sort of kind of thing?
Not exactly. It's just they're more like realizations of what our reality is. It's the foundation, I guess, that you can say, is that things are the way they are because they are.
Okay.
So understanding that the only things that are consistent and true and that you can lean back on are that things are interconnected, things are impermanent, that there's suffering, and fuck, I have to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, the suffering is definitely a big one. I think that falls under, a lot of different religions. I mean, I didn't learn this necessarily through like studying Christianity or anything, but I mean, I listened to quite a bit of Jordan Peterson, and the guy, I think he's, just one of the most admirable people. I'm hoping he gets better. He's definitely gone through some trials here. He had an addiction problem that he has been overcoming, and there's quite a story behind it if you haven't heard it already. I won't get into it right now, but I've looked up to him. I got his book 12 Rules for Life, which I still need to read, but I have I've definitely looked into him. But he gets into a lot of like the mythology behind Christianity, and not necessarily like, he wouldn't ever say that he believes in God himself, but he believes that it's very important to live as if God exists. He doesn't necessarily believe that there's somebody looking over us and whatnot, but one of the points he always tries to put out there is that life, like, there is always going to be suffering in life. Like, there is always going to be a struggle. And he connects this to like Jesus, carrying the cross like to the hill. And the struggle is important because it makes us who we are. It gives us our characteristics, and it gives us, you've
got to be grateful for it. It creates character.
Yeah, it creates character, and it gives, it molds our personality. It makes us who we are as people, so that, we can teach these things down to, the younger folks. And, there's just a lot of people out there who don't want to, go through the struggle to earn their keep, I guess. They don't want to, everyone's looking for, an easy way out or a shortcut to get places. And he's just like really, really big on, suffering and the struggle that it takes to make yourself a better person.
Yeah, that's totally, and that definitely aligns. So I found out what the fourth noble truth is, and that totally definitely relates to the fourth noble truth. So everything is impermanent, everything is interconnected. Life is suffering. The cause of that suffering is wanting things to be other than what they are, and that's the fourth noble truth. Is so like just accepting that you're okay. So for example, you're working really hard on something, and say you're tilling a field. You have to grow vegetables for your family, and you have to work this field, and you have to turn the dirt, and you have to plant the seeds. All that is really, really hard work. And wouldn't it be nice to not have to do it? You're suffering doing this work, but you could accept that that's the work that you're doing because you have to take care of you and your family, and you can enjoy that work, and you can choose to go with joy and know that you don't have to suffer. Like it's a hard thing to accept that suffering is a choice. Like we don't like to think about it in terms of that. Like we always think that things are happening to us. Things don't just happen to us. No. Things happen. Yeah. We're experiencing it. So we have an opportunity to look at it a certain way. We can look at it and say that, hey, we're suffering. Me as a person is suffering. Or you could say, I accept this. This is what life is experientially. What a wonderful gift this is. And know that it's not going to stay the same forever, and know that it's connected to something else down the line. So right now isn't going to last forever. right now is going to be different than the next moment, than the next moment, than the next moment. And you should be grateful for that. So in order to alleviate that suffering, you can accept that that is a suffering thing, choose to go enjoy, understanding that things aren't going to stay the same and that things are interconnected. And you don't have to suffer, because now you're making a choice because you understand these basic truths about what our reality is.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of this other analogy that I've heard recently where, like life is kind of, it's an inertia. I mean, you can imagine it as like standing on a treadmill.
Yes.
If you just stand there, you're going to fall behind.
Absolutely.
To stay where you are, you have to walk. If you want to get ahead, you have to run.
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess that would kind of fit into one of the noble, or like the concept of the noble truths.
Absolutely, and you can see how it applies. Like, that treadmill is never going to be the same. It's connected to your future. It's interconnected to everything. So, like, if you want to run, like, and that brings me to like karma. So, like, re-understanding karma. Like, when I first understood what karma was when I was like younger, and like, I guess the way that it's generally accepted is this whole idea that, oh, if you do good things, then good things will happen to you. And if you do bad things, then bad things will happen to you. And that's not what karma is. All karma is acknowledging that things are interconnected and impermanent, and that your actions have an impact on everything that happens in this universe.
Okay, so it's not like, if I do...
Yeah, like, it's not...
If I steal a loaf of bread, like, 10 years down the line, somebody's not going to steal, like, my whole bank account. Like, it's a tenfold thing.
It's not anything, like, superstitious like that. It's actually a really... Like, materialists could get on this idea. Like, that's how basic this truth is for Buddhism. You do something, it's going to affect something else. And because everything is interconnected, there's this possibility that action could directly bring an action back to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good or bad. Like, for example, there is this really cool piece of karma that happened to me like a year ago, where I had an appointment in Midtown, and it was like me and my kids, and I had to like hurry up, and I was about to leave, and this lady came up to my car, and I think she was Chinese or something. She didn't speak a lot of English, and she was asking me something. I was like, I don't know, and she was just like, she was asking for directions. So, and I was just like, I think it's over there, and she was like, good, okay, and then she opened my door and got in my car and sat down, and I was like, I was like, I'm not an Uber or a Lyft, like I can't take you. And she's like, no, it's okay. I'm just late for a meeting. I need to go over here. And I was just like, but I'm not a thing. Like, I don't do it. And
that's a weird situation.
It's a very weird situation, but like, I didn't feel threatened, so I was just like, let's go with it, okay? So like, I was like, all right, so where do you need to go? And she was just like, it's just around here. So it ended up being like 3 streets down and 1 street over, and it was like some lawyer's office in Midtown. And that was very scary for me. I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. I
really hope that she didn't have like dementia or something, and it was like reliving like an old memory in the past where she
wouldn't that be nuts?
Like a dentist's office, and like you ended up like taking her like a block away from like where she lives.
Exactly.
And you take her over there, and then her like kids come out like, where the hell is grandma?
Yo.
Like, where the hell,
Yeah. Luckily it didn't turn out that way. What actually ended up happening is because I took that time out of my day to just say, okay, I'm okay with it. Because, like, here's the thing. Like, suffering could be anything. It's not just, like, in pain or whatever. I'm suffering because now I'm doing something that I didn't choose to do. I'm experiencing this situation against my will. And that is, for all intents and purposes for this discussion, is suffering. But instead of saying, no, get out of my car, this is not okay, I went with it. I said, okay, I'm accepting this.
That was the nicest carjacking that you've ever
experienced. So as she's getting out of the car, she tosses me $100 bill for a 30-second car ride.
Oh!
So, like, I know that kind of aligns with the idea of do something good and something good will happen. That's an anomaly. I did something that I didn't want to do, and I accepted the suffering, but I went with joy with it, and for some crazy reason she wanted to give me $100 for it. She wouldn't let me give it back to her. I said, this is too much, you don't understand. This is a lot of money for America. She was like, no, you need to keep it, and she was late and she just ran off.
Wow, man.
And it's like, it's little stuff like that. I know that I'm sure you've experienced stuff like that, but that's just a small example of karma. Like, if I didn't take her there, I wouldn't have been tossed that $100. Would my life been any different or better? No. But like, because I decided to be okay with the suffering that I went through, something else happened and it got back to me somehow.
Wow, man.
It's weird.
That's a really awesome story.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy that happened. I'm sorry, my mind there's like a splinter in my brain right now. We got on to the 5 Noble Truths because you were talking about psychedelics. You were playing that to
oneness.
them, and we got on this crazy tangent. But I want to go. I just want to circle back to it because I want to know what you had to say about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About the ego dissolving into oneness as with like you.
Yeah, but I mean, you started going into it, and we started talking, and then I asked you to like describe what the noble truths were, and then we went off on a tangent from there, and then we never got back to that.
Oh, to finish my thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
That's
know.
essentially. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure if you mentally bookmarked that.
Yeah, I might have already explained it, but like that was the whole idea of like the oneness, like where everything is interconnected and impermanent, and like that's directly connected to my idea of what the experience of consciousness is like if everything is interconnected and it is impermanent and life is suffering, but when we're okay with that suffering, like that's the only way it can be alleviated. That to me gives me hints that we are part of a larger consciousness, that this illusion of self is an illusion that we get to enjoy in a mortal life, but once what we perceive as death isn't like the end of our existence. I think, like I said before, I think it's because everything is impermanent and interconnected, the way that we're interacting with consciousness is that we are consciousness. Or sort of like, how did he explain it? It's like, okay, so you have a plane and then you have consciousness kind of poking up out of that plane and like twisting around. And then from those
pokes, other pokes come out of that.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, to where like that's how consciousness will kind of manifest itself. And I feel like when you die, like that bit of consciousness just goes back down into the hole and then redistributed. Yeah. So like in a way that kind of explains like the idea of being like reborn, like what do they call it? The reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnation.
Yeah. So like that whole concept, like I feel like that can support it. Like you don't come back as you again, but your consciousness comes back redistributed. Yeah. And you maintain those experiences, which kind of influence the progression of evolution, and like I feel like it just explains so much.
Just like it's like a memory bank that just like, all right, these memories are locked in, and it's going to push it forward.
And it's like and like that action, like that also like that's a wave, and like we discovered that materialists have suggested that is essentially what our existence is, right? Is made up of wave-like matter, like because electrons, you know how they're not a wave, but they're also not matter. They're like something in between.
They're not. They're like. Yeah. I think the way that it is explained is that when they are observed, the wave function collapses. Like they exist as a wave until an observation.
Until you observe it, and then they're a single point.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, man, like I would really like to learn more about that because from what I understand, like that, that like stupid like Dr. Quantum. YouTube video that we watched like 10 years ago or whatever. Like the way that they explain it is like complete bullshit. Like they make you think that it's like some kind of like magic thing where the universe is conscious. But actually, maybe it's not. Maybe there were just physicists and stuff on there that are not of the mind to think that consciousness is something that can affect an outcome. Right. And they just
that's fair. When you are approaching a problem like that from a materialist
point
of view, like of course that's the state, but that's the main issue. Is just like consciousness, as far as we understand it, is not material.
Yeah, it's not.
We've assumed it's material because people said consciousness comes from the brain, and comes from the interaction of all these chemicals and hormones that go through our body. But we don't know. We can't say for sure that it's material. So like you, as a scientist, you should actually be open to the idea that it is non-local, and so that you can figure out what it is that we can do, and like maybe consciousness is one of those things that we'll never solve, which honestly, I think that would be okay. I like having that mystery.
It might be like, as we're talking about struggling and having a goal, it might be the last goal that we never actually get to, but it's the one thing that's going to keep humanity going forever.
And you have to be grateful for that. Because that's a dangerous area. Like, what happens when we think we've know everything?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of happening. I feel like it happened.
I think we're at that point right now.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's. I mean, especially in science, man. I think that the scientists have gone.
The scientists. That's an issue. That's another thing. We'll talk about that.
I think they've gotten to like a dogmatic point.
Yes.
Almost where, they've taken the place of the high priests and,
the soothsayers,
and
all that.
whatever. They've gotten themselves to such a high level where everyone, not a lot of people know science, but they believe it, and belief is
not knowledge.
Belief isn't necessarily knowledge, but people have trust in it. A lot like people had trust in the Bible.
Absolutely.
And you have a lot of scientists out there today that, for what I can see, are okay with the way that things are, and they're okay with the mechanistic science, but they're not okay with getting into like the consciousness realm and the possibility that consciousness might be a fundamental thing. Like they're not getting past the mechanistic.
Yeah, they don't want to do the hard work.
I don't even know if it's they don't want to do the hard work, but I mean you have scientists that have made they've made the mark. And they like being at the top.
Absolutely.
And when new work comes out that, may question what they have brought up in the scientific community and may, dismantle them from being at the top.
Yeah.
I think that it's really easy to be persuaded to poo-poo ideas.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a name for that. And I don't know if you listen to him as much as I do, but Brett Weinstein has a term for this because he's a big advocate for progressive knowledge and information and like honestly I'd have to agree with him just because I've experienced like the education system and like how much of a scam it is right now. Like I'm in debt like a lot of money to a school that I probably shouldn't have gone to, but that's besides the point. The way that I think he calls it the disc or something, but it's a what does it stand for?
No, I've heard this analogy. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it's essentially the idea that these scientists, these educational professionals, claim to want to have all this knowledge and share this knowledge and like benefit humanity, but like you were saying, like they find themselves in this position of being lauded for their work, and they don't want to let go of that when someone else does some breakthrough discovery that might refute what they've spent 15 to 20 or 30 years working on. But like that is what science is. Yeah. It's like you should be excited to find out that someone has discovered something that is not quite right, and you should be super interested in figuring out what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
because don't you want to get closer to as a scientist, which don't you want to know what's more true? And as far as science goes,
I mean, you would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to ring the Joe Rogan bell, but when he had Neil deGrasse Tyson on, and I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but they were talking about a certain subject, and Joe was asking Neil some questions like, all right, well, what's beyond this point, don't we want to learn a little bit more about this? He's like, well, we don't need to. We know how it works.
We know
how it functions. Why do we need to learn anything more about it?
Yeah, it's the hubris. It's the hubris around it. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I honestly, I used to look up to Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I watched that back when Joe was still doing his podcast lives. I remember watching that, and I was like, you're the fucking problem, dude.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
You really fucked yourself on this one because I used to like you, but now that I know that you're just okay with...
Yeah, but it's not just about him and his platform, right? Now you're questioning all of science because he's a representative of that.
Yeah.
And because he's taking that certain approach, like, well, we already know, like, we're confident enough to know, like, this is the way that it works. There's no other way that it could possibly work, or there's no way that, like, the whole idea behind science is that any theory or any fact, there needs to be a way to prove it false. If there's not a way to prove it false, you can't claim to know it, and that's the whole point of science.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry. If you know something as fact and then you can't prove it false, then
if you can't prove it false, if you can't prove something to be false, you can't claim to know that it's true according to science. That's one of the tenets.
Sorry, that doesn't. I'm sorry. It's not clicking with me.
Yeah.
Because if you can prove something to be true, and then like how could you prove
it? It has to be able to be falsified.
It has to be able to be falsified
yes.
in certain situations, or
like as an ever. So like, let me think of an example for you. It's like falsifiability, aliens. Okay. No, so falsifiability is essentially.
I don't know if you can falsify ability aliens. At this point,
no,
because of
that's another episode.
Aliens will be
I'm
another
excited.
episode.
That's a good idea.
Dude, they've just like dropped the bombs on potential alien life recently.
Did. Stay tuned. Okay, falsifiability though. So it's the concept that if you have a prediction, you need to be able to prove that prediction wrong, which means you also need to find evidence that can support the prediction being wrong. So, like, think of it this way. Like, I read an article, I think it was from Forbes. They explained it this way. Imagine who would be more credible? Would it be the boxer who is in the ring and wins fight after fight after fight, and then loses sometimes? Or is it the boxer who says that he's the strongest boxer in the world, but then never steps into the ring to fight? So it kind of seems almost like a really flimsy kind of idea, but think of it like, okay, so if you're proving something to be true, let's prove the sun is the center of our solar system. So we can prove that the sun is the center of our solar system because we're rotating it. We know that now. But like, how did we figure that out? And it was through like the experiments. So like, we can prove that the sun is the center of the universe because we're rotating around it, and the reason why it's nighttime isn't because the sun is going down, but it's because the Earth is going around it. And there's multiple things that we can
and also a lot of math.
And there's a lot of math that I don't know.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's the best example I can come up with right now. I'm sure there's other examples, but it's like you have to be able to prove that the prediction is not true for it to hold water as a theory, and that's the falsifiability. And then it needs to be replicable to be science, and then it also needs there's some third thing. Anyway, that's why. Why did we talk about that?
We went on a really long string of things, man. I don't remember exactly why we got there. I think we were talking about the science being dogmatic. I got this idea. I mean, it sprang out of. I guess it didn't spring out of my head. It sprang out of Rupert Sheldrake's head. And Rupert Sheldrake. I don't know if many of you listeners have heard of him, but he is just a phenomenal character in the scientific community. He's got some really interesting ideas. One of being morphic resonance, but he is one of two people who have had their TED Talks banned that I know of. Yeah, at least the last time.
The other one's Graham Hancock, right?
Yeah, Graham Hancock. Yeah, Graham Hancock.
Another brilliant scientist, by the way.
And he was. Graham Hancock's got nuked for talking about mushrooms and psychedelics and their ability to like rehabilitate people's minds, like people with PTSD and stuff. I think,
which Paul Stamets has kind of confirmed with his research. I mean, that's what his life is.
Yeah, I mean I can't remember what year that he did that talk, but that one got nuked. And Rupert Sheldrake got his nuked because he did his on the 10 dogmas of science. And the scientific community had a really, really big pushback against that. And I mean, I think you can actually still find it on YouTube, but I don't think you can find it on the TED Talks website
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't think, they've taken it down.
I mean, this was, I don't know, probably 7 years ago, maybe less.
Right.
But,
so what was he saying? What were the 10 dogmas of science?
honestly, I think it's like a whole other podcast, but one of the dogmas that they have is that physics is a constant. Like all like physics is a constant. They don't change.
Yeah.
They're, the speed of light doesn't change.
Right.
Gravity doesn't change. There are no variabilities in these what they call like physical constants.
But how can we prove all that? Essentially, is what he's saying, right?
Well, no, it's not even how we can prove all that. It's his experience of like finding that these things aren't necessarily true.
Okay.
From what I can remember, and I'm reaching really hard for this one of the examples that he gave was that they were measuring like the speed of light from like one point to another. Okay. And they had to basically like do some kind of a configuration on whatever machines that they were using to measure it. I think maybe they had to make some adjustments to like the calculations that they were using to measure it. Because, he was like, why are you making these adjustments? Isn't speed of light is always a constant. He's like, yeah, I mean, you'd think so, but every once in a while, like we get these like variable speeds.
Interesting.
And if you get more into Rupert Sheldrake and his, he's got a book called Morphic Resonance, The Nature of Formative Causation, or if you're in England, I think it's called A New Science of Life. It's the same book.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
But they're in different countries. He has because it's a scenario that he often uses where, crystal formulations.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So whenever you synthesize a new crystal, and this is like a form that has never ever come into existence.
Brand new crystal
has never existed before, but it happens in labs all the time. They're always like finding new ways to synthesize new compounds. But what they have found out is that once the first time like a crystal has been compounded and has been formulated and comes into existence, the preceding crystallizations thereafter become easier and easier and easier and easier.
Interesting.
And the reason why he believes this is because of his theory of morphic resonance and how essentially there's like a memory through space-time where the more like he describes the universe as basically a conglomerate of habits.
Okay.
And the more times something happens, the more it's kind of solidifies itself.
So it like
into being.
The universe essentially has its own proclivities of doing things.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, the first time that you synthesize a crystal, it'll take. This is like completely for example. I don't know what data he was pulling from, but say it takes like 10 minutes to synthesize this crystal. The first time that they make it, they know they can do it, but it's the first time that this crystalline structure has ever come into existence. So as far as they know.
Yeah, so it's going to take some time to learn how to build itself up, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going the morphic resonance route, so they make this crystal. The next time that it happens, like the universe now has a memory of this previous form that has introduced itself into the universe, and so based off the memory, it goes a little bit faster. It crystallizes faster. The next time, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, until it kind of plateaus into like a,
like a range, like between 2 and 5 minutes or whatever. Like
but maybe a little bit more, more precise than that.
Wow.
But it's just something that they've noticed is that once you create a new kind of structure. It can be molecularized or constructed faster and faster and faster. And some scientists have, they've tried to dismiss it as, it's only because, we've learned how to do it faster and faster. We've just gotten better at it over time.
So they attribute it to their own skills.
Yeah, so they try to attribute it to their skills, or they, I think the analogy that Rupert Sheldrake gives is, they believe that, it must have been, fragment molecules that have been
seeded or whatever.
Seeded from migrant chemists from one place to the other, from their beards or their clothing, and now it's synthesized even faster because of that.
That seems really unlikely.
But yeah, no, I mean his theory is that like I just don't want to get into like morphic resonance is its own thing,
right?
But essentially, like the universe holds within it a kind of memory. And once something has happened once, it becomes easier and easier for it to happen again and again and again.
And then like hearing that, like that's what really supports my whole, I guess, belief you can call it, that the fundamental stuff of the universe is consciousness. Because like the only thing that I can think of that can form habits is sentient life. Like we all kinds of animals form habits. Spiders build webs. That's a habit, and we've seen some of the most intricate structures come from spider webs. We build buildings and we get better at building buildings all the time, and it's a quality of consciousness that we're identifying. So like when I hear things like that, where crystal is something that we perceive as inanimate, something without consciousness, something without life, have these attributes of learning and making habits, like you have to, like to me that like why it could be consciousness, like that to me that's proof, that's evidence that consciousness is guiding whatever this stuff is. Like atoms, like we're all made out of atoms, right? And it's like this matter, but like that matter in itself is conscious, and it has an intention. Whether we understand that intention or not,
honestly, I don't know about intention.
Yeah.
But I mean, going down the panpsychism route. I mean, if you want to place your belief in that, everything. They say that everything has a consciousness and it, at different qualia, I guess.
Yes.
There's just like there are different, I guess, levels of consciousness. I'm not sure if this would fall into like an ontological argument where one. Do you know what ontology is?
It's like what comes before what, right?
Sort of. Well, yeah. Okay. So I mean, the best example that I got was in philosophy class, which is what is more real, you or your shadow?
Okay.
So in order for your shadow to exist, two other things have to exist prior to it, and that is you and either like the sun or a light source.
Right.
So your shadow is less real than your body is, and the sun,
right?
Because it takes the two of those things to create
the shadow.
The shadow.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm not sure if consciousness is kind of like an ontological, or if panpsychism is kind of like an ontological thing where it's like humans are clearly a more complex organism, and so are a lot of other mammals, and there would be, there could potentially be like more. Maybe ontologically more conscious beings than others.
That's what we perceive as aliens or whatever,
Or the next level up, right? Like if we're in simulation 57 and simulation 56 created us.
There you go.
They could be potentially have more experience, variety than we do.
Right.
Or qualia.
Absolutely, they have way more qualia than we do. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, qualia was just such an interesting word that I came across because I just had never. There's always you always think of the word like experience.
Yeah, no, but qualia is very specific in that it describes like not only it's not just the color red, it's the experience. It's experiencing the color red because like if you ever. Here's something that is a conundrum. Describe the color red to a blind person.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't.
All you can give them is the visual hertz, or sorry, not the visual hertz, but like the mathematical hertz of like what frequency red travels on.
Right, and what does that even mean to someone who can't experience visually seeing the color red?
Yeah,
and there are some people out there. What is that thing called where like you see colors? There's a thing where there's some people out there that they have like this thing where sounds will happen, but then they'll see the sound and they'll interpret it as color.
Oh, an acid trip.
Yeah, no, but yes, I'm sure it happens during an acid trip.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forget the name for it.
I just listened to, I think it was...
Yeah.
No, actually, no, I don't think you listened to this podcast, but no.
Probably not, but...
I was listening to one with Lex Friedman, and he brought this guy on to talk about consciousness, and he... they had this like entire conversation about how this guy, I mean, up until like about age 20... every time that he had like listened to a song, like there was a very specific like color that was associated with it in his mind, and he saw these songs as certain colors. He said that like most of them kind of meshed into like a brownish greenish kind of range, but there were certain colors that like, or certain songs that had different colors that really stood out, and one of them was a Beatles song that he talked about, but God, I cannot remember the word that they used for it, but it's definitely, it's a phenomena that exists in a lot of people. I mean, when it goes to music for me, if I had a similar type of experience, I mean, there are some songs out there that I will listen to, and depending on how like connected I feel to the song, like emotionally or just like in the moment or whatever, like I'll get like goosebumps, and just be like, oh, man,
it'll affect you. Man.
This is really resonating with me right now, like this, or it's just it's a feeling, or it's it is an input that I'm getting that is just giving me a feeling that maybe other people don't necessarily have.
Exactly. And like that's another thing that provides evidence. Like those types of experience, like when you watch a good movie or you listen to some good music, there's something that happens within you and you feel it, right? And it's just like, to me, that's evidence that, maybe consciousness is a field, and like whatever that thing that you've created is also creating waves and interacting in some sort of mathematically harmonious way with your particular frequency of consciousness. And that's why we feel so strongly about, the things that we care about. And it's interesting to me to think about that, like everything can be like, even us, like we're even though we're taking in all this information, we're also putting out all kinds of information, and that's affecting how you think, and like that's kind of supporting the idea of like the morphic resonance, and like the way that consciousness is all interconnected, and like it affects everything. And like how like we used to do, like when you first taught me about morphic resonance, and like we used to do that cup game at work.
Yeah, man, I was gonna bring that up when we were talking about it earlier. But yeah, that was, I mean, you and I have the fastest, the longest streak that I think we had set, was it 17 repetitions?
It must have been 17, because I was thinking it might have been like 11. I knew it was it's impossible if this weren't true to me. Like statistically, it can't happen. And I was like, and it was like the way that we're doing is, was this the time that we kept on increasing
the number of cups? Okay.
Yeah, the number of cups. Okay.
I guess we gotta
go into this.
Okay, so I mean, we got this entire idea from morphic resonance. We're talking so much about it. We're definitely going to do like a podcast that really does
we'll go more into
Superdelic Freefall into this.
Yeah, and we will. We'll definitely do, but we have to tell the story because it's. Yeah, anyway.
But there's an idea in morphic resonance that there is like subtle telepathy that happens, and this telepathy, I mean, it happens all over, but it's so very, very minute that it doesn't happen very often, or you wouldn't even realize it if it did happen. The connection of this telepathy seems to be a lot stronger between people who have a very strong bond. So if you have like a childhood friend that you grew up with, or a parent, or a mother, and then there's also, this may not be the case, but for whatever reason, my mind is kind of telling me that it is, that those who are open to the idea of it possibly being true, it has a little bit more of an effect, like having like the belief that, okay, I'm going to go along with this, and instead of having like a resistant attitude towards something. Right. But anyways, we wanted to test out this telepathy idea, and Sean and I, we worked at a Starbucks. No, was it 10 years ago? Yeah,
it had to be a little bit more than 10 years ago. I think.
More than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we would play this game pretty frequently.
Simple game.
super simple.
Yeah.
If you understand like the ball under the cup game that you see at circuses, you got 3 cups, and
Yes.
the guy is swishing the cups around, and then you have to guess where the ball is under. And the idea of this between us was that you just needed to guess where the ball was based off of your gut feeling. You had to do your best not to apply any logic to it.
Right.
Because when you start trying to reason, I feel like it kind of collapses the wave function.
Absolutely. I was going to say it's directly related to that phenomenon with the electron. Like if you try to measure it, if you try to manipulate it as so many humans do, of course it's not going to work. I know that sounds fucking flighty, but like.
So
anyway,
so the rules of this game were that one person went into the back room.
And that's how we took it a step further. It's like we're not sitting there watching the cups switch around. Mm-hmm. We're literally outside of view. We can't use any of our normal perceptions to see what's going on.
Yeah, so one person would go to the back room, so they had absolutely no idea what was, like, where we used a rolled up receipt paper, mm-hmm. and we had gotten up to the point where we were at like 15 to 17 cups.
Yeah, we started with 3 cups, and then we would add a cup each round.
Yeah. And we had gotten up, I think we stopped at 15 because we were just like, we're wasting product now.
Exactly,
yeah, but once we had gotten to this point, we were on a roll. Sean would go to the back room, I would hide the paper ball under the cup, and once I was done, we had like headsets on, for drive-through, and we just could say, hey man, all right, it's all set, come out and choose. And Sean would come out of the back room, he'd pick a cup, and either the ball would be under it or the ball wouldn't be. Mm-hmm. For the most part, it wasn't like 100% hit or anything.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't 100% hit. But what was interesting though is like when it wasn't, when Andy or I, because we would switch off turns, it would get to the point to where like if the first cup we chose didn't have the paper under it, we would continue choosing until we found the paper. We just wanted to see the test. Like at that point,
how long it would take to get to it.
100% of the time, if we didn't find the paper underneath the cup the first time, we would be able to remove all the other cups, and the last cup would have the paper under it.
Yeah.
And we could not explain it at all.
Well, there was definitely that, but there was this time where, and honestly, I feel like this might actually have had an effect on it if, this whole, telepathy thing, I think, having a good time kind of amplifies the telepathy.
That's true, because we were having fun with it.
We were having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
But there was this one time where we were doing it, and we had 15 cups. I remember it because of the numbers matched up. We had 15 cups, and for 15 rounds, we got it on the first try.
Yes. Yes.
And I thought that was
that's incredibly significant.
Ridiculously strange.
It is very strange. And those of you who know math way more than what we do, that's statistically impossible.
Yeah.
honest to God, I know this is just a story. This is just a story.
Honest to God, this did happen.
It did.
Y'all, I'm sure a million people out there are going to call us liars and cheats and shit.
Of course. But we don't care. It happened. This was our experience. Yeah. And it's not like we're doing this every single day and it happened every single day.
We were doing it every single day.
We were doing it.
This was like 10 years.
Right. But it's not something that, it's not like digging a hole where I'm going to create space by digging a hole and digging out this dirt. It's it's just complete, for lack of a better word, it was faith. Mm-hmm. It's a very, I know it's a buzzword or like a hot, what do you call it? Like one of those controversial words.
No, it'd be called a buzzword, I guess.
I don't know. But it's not faith in the religious sense. It's faith in that there's this mysterious thing that happens that's related, that we've read about these morphic fields, and we are testing it, and it's just strange, and we can't claim that we caused that. We experienced it, so how can we?
All right. Oh, all I can say is we had definitely done this thing quite a few times beforehand, mm-hmm. and there had been times where we wouldn't get it at all, mm-hmm. and I think that when we were doing this, it was probably really busy at Starbucks, and our minds were we're working. We have to do a job. I'm pretty sure that the time that we actually did get it 15 times in a row with 15. I remember it was
it was hella slow,
no,
dude.
it was after closing. Like we had store was closed and we were closing the store down.
That's right.
So we had no customers. We were just like in the store getting everything.
And we had a call out, so it was just us, and we knew it was going to take forever. And I think we just were like, let's have fun.
So we I do remember that time, like because it was just weird how the numbers lined up. We got it 15 times in a row with 15 cups.
Yeah, weird.
And that was just, it was funky.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, I believe that they're like,
there's something to it.
There could be something, very subtle telepathic abilities that people have, and we just really just don't notice them.
No.
All the time.
If you have ever experienced any telepathic activities, though, please let us know in the comments because we would love to talk to you.
Absolutely. But I mean, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, when we were talking about like going to the concert and the mob mentality kind of thing, everybody kind of just like gets into this like certain like wavelength. Right?
Yes.
Like
they connect and they just
and just like everyone like kind of has this feeling, and I mean
have you ever seen like...
So there was this one time, and it was on the 4th of July. It was like back when I was in high school, and fireworks had gone off. I was with my girlfriend and a couple other friends, and we were walking back to our car. We had to park hella far away. I mean, y'all know how it is on 4th of July. Wherever the fireworks are, there's never any fucking parking. So we had to walk super far away, and we were walking, and all of a sudden, just like me and my girlfriend, like kind of like looked at each other, and like there was like I had felt like this like really weird feeling in the air, and she was like, "What's up?" And like, cause like she kind of like she kind of like
she
made
felt
this nod,
it,
like
weird.
What's going on too? And like we looked around us, and then all of a sudden we had noticed that like there was just like a bunch of people just like charging our way.
Oh my god.
And we were like, what the fuck is going on? So, like, we took off, too. And as we were running, we heard some other people saying, he's got a gun, he's got a gun.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And, I mean, we didn't hear any gunshots or anything.
Right.
Anything like that. But, like, man, we were way ahead of this crowd. Like, we were, like, one of the first people out there. Mm-hmm. And just, like, all of a sudden, like, we just, like, there was just like, this, I don't know, innate feeling, I guess, that we had both, like, kind of, like, got at the same time.
Yeah.
And I just I remember that, man. It was just like, there was just something like in the air that like hit instantaneously between both of us, and we were just like, what?
That's crazy,
dude.
That, I mean, like, how could that not be related to a collective consciousness? Like, that's a survival attack. That to me, that sounds like something very primitive and like something that an evolutionist would explain as something that would help our survival when we were living in groups. Or whatever.
Man. I mean, if there was something like that, those who had it would probably survive more often than those who don't.
That's just so important why we need to continue studying consciousness so that we can accept those types of things because who knows?
I think mechanistic science is great and it has its place, but I think like we did back when mechanistic science started going and we separated from the mind and spirit.
Yeah.
When we separated those two things, I think we need to bring that spirit metaphysical realm back into it because
I agree.
Clearly there are just things that don't
that
aren't meshing.
Exactly. And it's no offense to those of you who are religious, I absolutely believe that you should follow whatever your heart desire is as far as what you're believing in, but like for some people it's really hard to let go and to just rely on something or religion says to explain something. So like that's why people need science is they want the whole idea of science is like, okay, well, I can believe in something that is material and real. But I really do believe that people in religions who experience those things, there's something to it that is real. And like, even though you think it's not real, like I think there's something that you can explain it somehow. There's an explanation.
Well, I could imagine it being like this. I mean, I'm talking out of my ass at this point, but it's like, the people who, people who are Christians or people who are Muslims, people who are Hinduists, people who are Buddhists, whatever religion you are, I feel like, it could be, it could have the potential of, thank you. Yeah. You read my mind. Yes. where those who are more like-minded are, as friends are,
Yeah.
have the potentiality to, send out that, very like low frequent, very low noticeability, like telepathic kind of thought wave, I guess. I don't know what you would call it.
Right.
But, the birds of a feather are kind of flocking together.
Absolutely.
On a more low-level telepathic or maybe subconscious level, where it's not really, they're not really realizing it, but,
Right.
They're all kind of on the same pathway.
And so, like, the whole realization thing, like, that comes back to the Buddhism, like I was saying, like, where the meditation has really helped me realize that I'm experiencing this life, and it's only when I can take the time to be aware that I can notice those subtleties, like that little telepathic thing that you're talking about. Like, if I'm calm or having fun or whatever, there's something about that where we were mentioning, like, our cup game and everything, we're having fun and it was working better. But, like, there's something about being mindful and aware that you can notice these things that we consider paranormal, but, like, are actually just normal attributes of life. And I feel like we are in sort of this kind of illusion as far as thinking that we have this identity of self, and that's what really causes us the suffering, is not realizing that we are part of something greater and that our potential is more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, like, to add on to that, I mean, you've meditated before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it as much as I want to anymore. I have in the past, and, like, for like a 3-month period, I was meditating probably on a daily basis, and I really would like to get back to it.
It makes a huge difference. And it's something so small. Like, it's not something that you'll immediately notice. It's just like you have to take, and that's what meditation is you're taking the time to notice.
And like, the weirdest things that happen when you're meditating, I mean, I guess the point of it is to try to think of nothing.
Yeah.
But that's very hard to do. It's so
hard. How do you just not think of something?
I know, but like, I mean, a part of attempting to attain that nothingness, state is you can't help, it's weird because it's like a reflection that's like bending around itself.
Yes.
And you're observing where your mind is going at all times. Like, you're sitting there and, you're meditating, and, like, you're just, like, noticing your mind starting to think about, oh man, I need to get the cat bowl full. I need to, I need to take the garbage out to the
you just gotta let go of those
sidewalk.
Thoughts. Yeah.
All these, like, little things that just, like,
just pop in. Like,
when you try to clear it all out, like, all these, your consciousness just keeps on.
It's a battering ram, man. It just continues.
Popping in. All these little tiny thoughts just, like, keep on coming in, and I mean, I think at the time that I was, like, meditating, I was, like, reading a lot of these self-help books and stuff, like Miracle Morning and 7 Levels to Communication.
Yeah.
And a few other ones like Think and Grow Rich and stuff like that. And they all kind of have, like, somewhat of a similar theme that alludes to what the book The Secret kind of...
Yeah. Like the whole, like, manifesting thought concept.
And, like... I have definitely, I think it, what I think it is, and I think it is that if you do truly believe it, and there have been times that I have, it works. For whatever reason, the belief thing, it really helps along. I mean, I honestly don't think that if you believe, like, I'm gonna make the moon, like, 5 miles closer to the Earth,
right?
I don't think
that's probably not gonna work.
Something like that would happen. Yeah. But if you're trying to make these these small adjustments to your life, and you're trying to, I guess, the entire book about The Secret is about attracting the things you want to you, sort of thing. There are small things that you can do, and, like, the I guess the point of The Secret, you think about these things and how you already have them. Yeah. And like not only how you already have them, but how you act and how you portray yourself as if already having these things.
Right.
And by doing this, I mean, for me, like during this time period, I mean, when I was thinking about this stuff, like weight loss was like a big thing for me. I'd lost not 100 pounds. I have lost 100 pounds before,
Absolutely.
which was nuts.
I remember.
I gained it all back. And then when I came around to the second round, when I was reading all these self-help books, I was at 267 and then came down to about 230, I think. So I lost about 37 pounds during that bout. But, you're thinking about these things and then you're also taking action.
Yes. Which is key.
You have to take action. You can't just think about it.
Right.
Thinking about it does lead to action.
Absolutely.
So.
But without the action, how can anything happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure.
But, I mean, I guess you can think of on a conscious level, is the conscious level of thinking about something like a precursor to actually taking the action.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some
there might be something to it, but I believe though, if you I don't believe in the secret. Let's make that clear. I don't think that it's not infallible.
No.
But I do believe that if you put yourself in a certain mindset and you believe something and you take the action, we don't understand what actions that we need to take to affect things for the future. But if we're putting in an effort, I think that at some point you'll get that feeling of enlightenment and know okay, what steps do I need to take next?
Yeah,
it'll lead to something. It'll lead to a change.
Yeah,
and that change is probable
that's probably where it is. I mean, what I think the secret. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off there. But what I think the secret is good for is putting your mind in the right mindset to take action.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then that kind of circles back around to just being okay. The fourth noble truth is accepting that suffering, right? So in the same way that you are believing something to be a certain way, it's the same thing. Okay, well, it doesn't matter what happens. I know that at some point I'm going to have this because I already have it. So that's, in one way, you're telling yourself you're dealing with this suffering. You're saying, okay, this suffering is worth it. You're almost saying this is paying for what I'm going to get. So it's it's that same idea of, I'm thinking, therefore,
I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, right, basically, yeah.
Going back to Rene Descartes.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, man, that he did, I think it was 6 meditations before he finally concluded his idea of the I think therefore I am, which has been, kind of the pinpoint.
Yeah, when you think of philosophy that, you immediately think that line from Descartes, I think therefore I am. It's the most prolific.
And still very influential in thinking about consciousness today.
For sure.
The I think therefore I am postulate or conclusion that he came to was derived while he was thinking about I can doubt everything. I can doubt the existence of this table. I can doubt the existence of the air that I'm breathing now. I can even doubt, that my body is actually in existence if it's not, it could potentially just be a bunch of, illusory things that a demon is, portraying in front of me so that I don't know what the actual reality is.
Exactly.
But the one thing that I cannot doubt is that I'm thinking. Observing this. I am thinking.
Yes.
I am thinking. I am thinking.
So you have to be something.
It's the only thing that you can actually self-prove that is actually true. Is that you are thinking.
Yeah.
You can doubt everything else.
And then from there, everything else is derived. But
yeah, but you cannot doubt.
You can't doubt that you are.
Yeah. So
fascinating.
That's where the whole I think therefore I am came from.
Got it.
It's a really interesting story about Rene Descartes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's okay. So it is about Rene Descartes.
Okay.
But I took philosophy 101, a couple philosophy classes in college, And we had this really studious philosophy teacher, as they mostly are. You know, they're all like hoity-toity, and you know, they try to.
They know things.
They know things. They know things, and they're smarter than everyone else. This really, I mean, this guy, man. This guy at the college I went to, man, he was like the philosophy professor. He was a short little guy. He was really stout, and he always wore a vest, and he had these like big round glasses that he always wore. And
did it magnify his eyes?
No, they didn't magnify his eyes, but he looked like the wise owl. Like,
nice,
you know, he was like Archimedes on.
Yes, on fucking Sword of the Stone. Yes.
Yeah, he was just like this really studious looking dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that got me really into philosophy, I mean, what started me getting into it was the allegory of the cave, like Plato's allegory of the cave.
Oh, classic, yes.
So I mean, that's like kind of like got me interested in it. But like what really got me going is like one of the first classes. It's probably within the first week or two that he said, "All right, next class you're coming in, we're gonna learn what is."
What?
I know, right? And that just like for whatever reason, like it hooked my mind, and I was like, "Wait, what is?"
Is?
Yeah, and it just hooked me. But anyways, like went through his class. I think I did pretty horrible in it. Like I was pretty bad. I mean, I was just not giving a shit in college. Yeah. But the class was super interesting
for sure.
But on the last day of class, we had just finished like learning about Descartes. And he announced to everyone that he was part of this secret society.
Wait, the teacher?
Yeah, the teacher.
Oh.
Not Descartes. I mean, Descartes might have been, but, you know, the teacher had announced that he was part of a secret society.
It seems like it's against the rules, man.
What?
To tell someone that you're part of a secret society?
Maybe.
I mean, if you're a part of a secret society, you can take whatever actions you want.
As long as you don't tell people what the society is, I guess it's still a secret.
Oh, so he didn't tell you?
No.
Okay,
he just said he was part of. Maybe he didn't say secret. Maybe he just said society. But anyways, he's part of a group of guys.
Yes.
Probably get around and smoke cigars and talk about how smart they are.
Yes.
No. And he started telling us the story. And I know that there's like a big controversy over Descartes' bones. I won't get into it because I don't know the whole history behind all that kind of stuff. But he was telling us the story. You know, Descartes had finally come to his postulate and his great conclusion that, I think therefore I am. He, him and all of his buddies, they went out to celebrate. Like, this is a fantastic discovery that you have come up with, that you can, doubt everything around you except for yourself. This is going to propel us, far within the philosophical and scientific realm. Awesome, let's go celebrate. So they went around to all of these different bars, and they were just drinking the night away and just having a good time. And he had a bunch of friends with them, and from bar to bar, a few friends fell off, people were getting drunk and falling asleep.
Yeah.
And in the wee hours of the night, the last friend had fallen asleep, and Rene Descartes was there with him. Was there, and he was the only one who was left halfway conscious. They were in a drunken stupor, and they were just totally wasted.
Yeah.
And
we know what that's like.
Yeah. Cheers to that.
Yeah. Okay.
So totally wasted. He's the last. Sorry, I guess I need to drink, right? The last surviving conscious member of this entire crowd, and our teacher, is talking to us very seriously. He's telling this story fucking dead serious.
Right.
And he's telling us, it comes to the last bar. Rene Descartes is the last conscious person. Everyone's in drunken stupor, has even fallen asleep or gone home for the night.
Okay.
Or has passed out in the bars.
So Descartes a badass.
Descartes badass. He can hold his own.
Yes.
He can throw back a few.
Absolutely.
And they're sitting at a table, and his friend passes out, and he's sitting there in his drunken stupor, and the barkeep comes up and says, "Would you like some more? Can I pour you another glass?" And Rene Descartes looks up at her and he says, "I think not," and disappears.
Oh!
With a dead straight face. This is what our philosophy teacher tells us.
Fuck! Did that actually happen?
I don't fucking know. It does not seem like it was something.
That's a good story, though. I like it.
But he was like totally dead serious about the whole thing.
That's hella funny, dude.
And he like I don't know if he was like I haven't read about Descartes' bones. There's like apparently there's a huge conspiracy behind them because they've gone missing from his grave.
No.
Yeah, from what I've heard, like they're not there.
That's crazy.
And so there's
conspiracy
been,
theories.
there's been this whole conspiracy about Descartes' bones, but he like told that to us like after telling us about his
about the bones and everything. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
that might be another podcast. If you guys want to hear this, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, man, it was just a funny, silly story. Like,
hell yeah.
It just I'm sure he threw it out there at the last one. He's like, all right, I'm gonna see if they actually like learned anything philosophy and decide to go and dig deep in this one.
That's good shit. Man, Descartes. Man. I think therefore I am. I think therefore I am.
Yeah, I mean, in I believe it was in the either French or Latin terms, like I don't know, but I believe it was cognate ergo sum.
Oh yeah, that's definitely Latin.
Yeah, that was the language in which he used to.
Yeah. By the way, I took 4 years of Latin in high school, so that's how I know.
Yeah, say something.
I cognate ergo sum. I was a bad Latin student.
Oh man,
that's.
Yeah, me too. I was so bad in Latin, I never took it.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, dude. Well, I think this kind of wraps it up for us
Absolutely. Tonight. If you have anything to say about consciousness or anything that we maybe missed or misunderstood, let us know, and perhaps we'll do a podcast about it. Maybe we'll even invite you on.
Yeah, give us some ideas. We're kind of open to a lot of stuff right now.
We love talking to each other about these things, and I hope you love listening to what we have to say. I think it's really important that you guys let us know what you want to hear so that we can do that for you.
We love feedback, positive or negative. We want it
all.
We hope positive, but there's something we're doing
If you have
wrong,
negative feedback, we're obviously going to...
Put it down in the comments and leave us a like. Yeah. Just so that we know that it's you.
Exactly. And at some point, like I'm gonna point at where just subscribe or
it's somewhere over
there. I don't know.
We'll
figure that out, and then we'll have
at some point.
Yeah. But we're having a lot of fun doing this. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you're having fun too. We're gonna have a lot more content in the future. We don't plan on stopping ever. So
yeah, this is going to go on forever, just like your consciousness.
Yes.
Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe.
Mm-hmm. Hit the notification bell, please.
Yes, please hit that notification bell. That's a big one. You should probably subscribe. Hit all three. Why not?
Yeah.
What else are you doing right now?
Do all the things.
It would take literally less than a second for you to hit the subscribe, notification, and like bell.
Yes.
That is like the least amount of effort that we could ask from anyone, and we ask that you do it, please, because you can either if you want to hear from us, that's the way it's going to happen.
This is the way. That's the only way.
This is the way, all right? The Mandalorian. This is the way. All right?
Oh my God, I can't wait for the next season.
Oh, dude, I haven't even finished the first one.
Yo, you got to finish the first one. Okay, anyway, thank you. Bye. Have a great day.